One ordinary morning, hundreds of workers filled the company auditorium, but when the CEO took the stage, his words shocked the world. Every job here is terminated, except one. The janitor stays, gasps. Anger, confusion. Why would a billionaire CEO fire everyone but keep the man who mopped the floors? That janitor isn't just any man. He's a single dad, a war veteran, a quiet worker no one ever noticed, and hidden in his past is a secret act of mercy, one so powerful, when the truth is revealed, hardened board members are left in tears. But not everyone wants mercy to win. As whispers of betrayal and scandal spread, one question burns through the company like wildfire. What did the janitor do to deserve this, and will his light be enough to save them all? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. The glass doors of Whitestone Global Headquarters caught the morning sun, throwing diamonds of light across the polished marble floor. Ray Brooks pushed his mop bucket through the lobby, the wheels squeaking, a familiar rhythm that matched the hymn under his breath. Something about grace, about morning mercies. His navy coveralls bore his name in simple white thread, the edges frayed from years of washing. "Morning, Ray." A young executive rushed past, briefcase swinging. Ray nodded, kept mopping. Most folks didn't speak. 20 years cleaning these floors, and he'd become part of the architecture necessary but invisible, like the pipes in the walls. The lobby filled with Monday energy. Accountants clutched their coffees like lifelines. Marketing folks scrolled phones while walking, nearly colliding at the elevators. Two managers debated yesterday's Browns game near the security desk. 4th and goal, and they run it up the middle? Criminal. Should have thrown to the corner. Ray guided his mop around their expensive shoes. The marble reflected their faces from below, distorted and strange. He'd noticed that about this place everything looked different depending on your angle. Upstairs, something stirred. Not the usual Monday morning hum, but a nervous electricity that made the fluorescent lights seem harsher. Whispers traveled faster than the elevators. Emergency meeting, all staff. Hale himself is speaking. By 9:30, the current had reached the lobby. Administrative assistants hurried past, heels clicking urgent patterns. The security guard abandoned his crossword puzzle, ear tilted toward his radio. Ray wrung his mop, watching the water spiral down the drain. Whatever storm was brewing upstairs, it would blow over. Storms always did at Whitestone. Mergers, acquisitions, restructuring, fancy words for the same old dance. The executives would shuffle, the workers would worry, and come Tuesday morning the floors would still need cleaning. "Ray, you coming?" Marta from HR paused at the auditorium doors. "It's mandatory. Everyone means everyone." He leaned the mop against the wall. The bucket could wait. The auditorium hummed with bodies and anxiety. 800 employees packed the space, some standing along the walls. Ray found a spot near the back, behind a cluster of call center folks. The stage looked impossibly far away, like watching life through the wrong end of a telescope. Thomas Hale emerged from the wings. No entourage, no PowerPoint, no smile. His gray suit hung loose on his frame had he lost weight. The room quieted. That peculiar silence of held breath and racing hearts. Tom gripped the podium edges. His knuckles went white. "I'll be direct." His voice carried without the microphone, raw and strange. "As of today, every position at Whitestone Global Headquarters is terminated." The silence shattered. Gasps rippled through rows like dominoes falling. Someone's coffee cup hit the floor, the splash dark against cream carpet. "What do you mean, terminated? You can't. This is illegal." Tom raised one hand. The gesture looked painful, like lifting something unbearably heavy. Except, he paused, and in that pause lived 1,000 fears. Except for Ray Brooks, our janitor. The room turned. 800 faces swiveled, searching, finding Ray frozen against the back wall. His hand still held the ghost of his mop handle, fingers curled around nothing. "This is insane." "Why him? What kind of sick joke?" Bodies surged. Not toward the stage but toward Ray, a tide of confusion and fury. Someone shoved, someone shouted. The emergency exits burst open, spilling employees into the lobby where reporters had somehow already gathered, their cameras hungry for disaster. "Mr. Brooks? Ray? Why you?" Microphones thrust at his face like accusations. Lights blazed, questions hammered from every direction. "Are you related to Hale? What leverage do you have? Did you know this was coming?" Ray's mouth opened, but no words came. What words could there be? He looked for Tom, but the CEO had vanished into the chaos. Security guards pushed through, trying to form a barrier, but the crowd pressed closer. "Why the janitor?" A reporter's breath smelled of stale coffee and ambition. "Why only you?" The marble floor he'd polished that morning now bore 100 footprints, scuff marks of panic and rage. Through the glass doors, he glimpsed protesters already forming, their hastily made signs demanding answers. A hand grabbed his shoulder, Marta, trying to pull him toward the service elevator. "Come on. We need to get you out of here." But Ray couldn't move. Not yet. He stared at the chaos he'd somehow become the center of, this hurricane with a mop bucket for an eye. 20 years of invisible service, and suddenly everyone could see him, really see him. The questions kept coming, louder now, angrier. "What makes you special? What did you do? Why him? Why only the janitor?" The morning hymn he'd been humming felt like a lifetime ago. Grace amazing, how sweet the sound, but there was no sweetness here, only the sour taste of fear and confusion. Whatever Tom Hale had started, whatever strange plan had led to this moment, Ray stood at its center now. The reporters pressed closer, their cameras capturing his bewilderment for the evening news. The lobby erupted like a kicked anthill. 800 people became 800 separate disasters, each racing toward desks, toward explanations, toward anything that made sense. Ray pressed himself against the wall as bodies streamed past. A woman from accounting stumbled, her box of belongings spilling across the marble. Nobody stopped to help. Picture frames cracked under hurrying feet. 20 years! Someone screamed at no one. 20 years I gave them. The elevators couldn't keep up. People crammed in, 15 where 8 should fit. Others took the stairs, their footsteps thundering up the emergency exits. Ray watched it all, invisible again in the chaos, just another fixture like the potted plants or the reception desk, until Marcus from IT grabbed his arm. "You knew." Marcus's grip tightened. "You had to know." "I didn't." "Don't lie to me." Spit flew from Marcus's mouth. "Nobody keeps the janitor unless there's a reason." Others gathered, forming a half circle. Their eyes held the same accusation. "He's probably related to Hale, or he's got dirt on someone. Nobody's that special pushing a mop." Ray pulled free from Marcus's plan. "Grip. I found out same as you. Right there in that room." "Sure you did." Diane from payroll clutched a banker's box, her knuckles white. 30 years I've been here." 30. "And they keep you?" What could he say? That he understood their anger? That he'd trade places if he could? The words tangled in his throat. Security finally pushed through, creating a path. Ray slipped away, but the accusations followed him down the service corridor, echoing off concrete walls. The walk home took twice as long. Ray avoided Main Street, cutting through alleys and side roads. His phone buzzed constantly, numbers he didn't recognize, reporters probably. He turned it off. Their apartment smelled like home. Crayon drawings covered the refrigerator. Ruby's backpack sat by the door, covered in superhero stickers. Normal things. Safe things. "Daddy!" Ruby bounced into his arms, all energy and innocence. "Miss Chen taught us about butterflies today. Did you know they taste with their feet? That's something, baby girl." He set the table while she chattered about school, grateful for the distraction. The mac and cheese came out slightly burned. He'd forgotten to stir it, mind elsewhere. Ruby didn't complain, but kids noticed everything. "Daddy?" She pushed noodles around her plate. Are we okay? Course we are. Did you do something wrong at work? The question hit like cold water. Ray set down his fork, choosing words carefully. No, baby. Daddy didn't do anything wrong. Then why do you look sad? He reached across their small table, taking her hand. 8 years old and already too perceptive. Work is complicated right now, but we're okay. We're always okay as long as we're together. She squeezed his fingers, seemingly satisfied. But later, after bedtime stories and prayers, Ray stood in her doorway, watching her sleep. The weight of the day settled on his shoulders. Whatever Tom Hale had planned, Ruby would pay the price if it went wrong. Tuesday dawned gray and angry. The picket lines formed before sunrise. Ray watched from his apartment window as protesters gathered, their signs catching the early light. Unfair, justice for workers, why him? News vans lined the street like vultures. Reporters practiced their segments, gesturing at the gleaming tower behind them. Unprecedented decision that has left hundreds without employment. Questions remain about Ray Brooks and his connection to CEO Thomas Hale. Stock prices plummeted in early trading. Ray turned off the television. Every channel showed the same images, angry faces, waving signs, his own bewildered expression from yesterday captured and replayed endlessly. Tom's silence made everything worse. A single statement from his office. Closed-door board meeting scheduled, no further comment. The vacuum filled with speculation and rage. Ray's phone rang the school. Mr. Brooks? We've had some concerns from other parents about the situation at Whitestone. We think it might be best if Ruby stayed home today. His chest tightened. She didn't do anything wrong. Of course not. It's just temporary. Until things calm down. Temporary. Everything felt temporary now. That night, Ray returned to Whitestone, not because anyone asked, because floors didn't clean themselves and routine offered its own comfort. The building stood mostly empty. Security nodded him through. They'd always liked Ray, the guy who remembered their kids' names and brought coffee on cold nights. His footsteps echoed in the lobby. Outside, protesters maintained their vigil, their chants muffled by thick glass. Fair wages, fair treatment. Shame, shame, shame. Ray dipped his mop, watching the water darken. Push and pull, back and forth, the meditation of manual labor. The marble began to shine, reflecting the ceiling lights in long streams. In that shine, his face looked back tired, confused, caught in something beyond understanding. He thought of Gavin Rusk's words, overheard in the parking garage. Tom's lost his mind. The board won't stand for this insanity. Whatever game played out in boardrooms and stock prices, Ray stood at its center, holding a mop like always. The protesters' chants grew louder, then softer, a tide of anger against the glass. He wrung the mop and started on the next section. The floor would shine by morning. It always did. The boardroom smelled like leather and judgment. Ray stood near the door, uniform still carrying the faint scent of floor cleaner, while 12 board members sat around the massive oak table. Their faces ranged from curious to hostile. Tom Hale stood at the head, shoulders squared against the storm he knew was coming. Thank you all for coming on short notice. His voice carried the weight of sleepless nights. I know you have questions. I have answers. Questions? Gavin Rusk's laugh held no humor. Tom, you just torched our stock price and turned us into a national joke. We need more than answers. You'll get them. Tom clicked a remote. The screen behind him lit up with 2 words. Second chances. This is not a collapse. It's a reset. A 2-week transformation. Eunice Park leaned forward, her teacher's instinct for order kicking in. Explain. Every employee will continue receiving full pay and benefits during these 2 weeks. Healthcare, everything uninterrupted. The tension in the room shifted slightly. Ray noticed shoulders dropping, fists unclenching. But, Tom continued, everyone must reapply under our new Second Chances Charter. We're rebuilding this company from the ground up, based on character, not just credentials. That's insane. A younger board member, Ray, didn't recognize, shook his head. You can't run a Fortune 500 company on feelings. We haven't been running it on much else. Quarterly projections, stock buybacks, treating people like expenses instead of assets. Tom's voice hardened. Where has that gotten us? Turnover at 40%? Morale surveys that make me sick to read. And your solution is keeping the janitor? Gavin gestured at Ray like he was furniture. Tom turned to Ray then, and something in his expression made Ray's stomach drop. Ray Brooks has worked here 14 years. In that time, he's treated every single person from interns to visiting heads of state with the same dignity and respect. He remembers names, asks about sick kids, helps people find their cars in the parking garage at night. Ray felt heat creeping up his neck. Several board members were staring at him now, really looking for the first time. He does his job with excellence, never complains, never asks for recognition. Tom's voice caught slightly. In 14 years, not one complaint, not one incident, just quiet, consistent character. That's admirable, another board member said slowly. But what does that have to do with everything? Tom pulled out a folder. These are emails from employees over the years. Listen. Ray helped me carry boxes when I was 8 months pregnant and couldn't find anyone else. Ray sat with me in the lobby when I was having a panic attack. Ray fixed my daughter's bike in the Primes. The parking lot when the chain broke. The room had gone quiet. This is who we need evaluating our rehires. Someone who sees people, not positions. You're not serious, Gavin said. Ray will chair the rehire values panel. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Ray's knees nearly buckled. No, the word escaped before he could stop it. Mr. Hale, I clean floors. I don't know anything about, you know about people. Tom's eyes held something desperate. You know about dignity, about second chances. Tom, this is unprecedented, Eunice said carefully. Asking Ray to evaluate executives, managers, not alone. He'll have a team. HR, department heads who demonstrate the values we need. But Ray makes the final calls. I can't. Ray's voice cracked. Sir, please, I got a daughter to raise. I can't be making decisions about people's lives. You already do. Tom's voice dropped. Every night, you decide to treat people with respect when they ignore you. You decide to work with excellence when no one's watching. You're the only compass I trust in this building. The boardroom erupted. Voices overlapped, some angry, some bewildered. Gavin slammed his hand on the table. Someone mentioned shareholders, lawsuits, insanity. Through it all, Tom kept his eyes on Ray. 2 weeks, he said, cutting through the noise. Give me 2 weeks to prove this works. If it doesn't, I'll resign. That silenced them. Eunice spoke first. We need to vote. No. Gavin stood. We need emergency provisions. A psychological evaluation. Something. Sit down, Gavin. Eunice's teacher voice could still freeze a room. We vote. All in favor of Tom's 2-week trial? Hands rose slowly. 4, 5, 6. Eunice made 7 a majority. Tom's shoulders sagged with relief. He turned to Ray. Will you do it? Will you help me rebuild this company the right way? Ray looked around the room at faces ranging from hopeful to skeptical to openly hostile. His custodial uniform felt like armor made of paper. 2 weeks? 2 weeks. And people keep getting paid? Every penny. Ray thought of Ruby, of their small apartment, of the protesters outside. Lord help him. Okay. The drive home took forever. Ruby slept in the back seat, exhausted from a day hidden at Mrs. Chen's apartment, while Ray met with lawyers and HR people who spoke in languages he didn't understand. The streetlights painted orange stripes across the dashboard. Ray's hands trembled on the steering wheel. Lord, why me? The words came out, barely a whisper. I'm nobody special, just a man with a mop. Ruby stirred but didn't wake. "What do you want from me now?" The radio played softly some old gospel station. The familiar hymns usually brought comfort, but tonight they felt like questions. Ray thought of Tom's desperate eyes, of the board's skepticism, of tomorrow when he'd have to sit across from executives and decide their futures. "I ain't qualified for this, Lord. You know I ain't." But even as he said it, he remembered his grandmother's words. God don't call the qualified baby. He qualifies the called. The apartment building came into view. Ray would carry Ruby up 3 flights, tuck her in, then sit at his kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a legal pad, trying to figure out how a janitor evaluates souls. 2 weeks to rebuild a company on character instead of credentials. Help me, Lord. Help me see what you see. The boardroom felt different the next morning. Tom had called another session extended, mandatory. Ray arrived 20 minutes early, his mop bucket parked just outside the heavy oak doors, like a faithful dog waiting for its owner. "You can leave that," Marta from HR said gently. "Rather keep it close," Ray said. Made him feel like himself. Board members filed in, coffee cups steaming, legal pads ready. Gavin entered last, his smile sharp as broken glass. Ray took the same seat as yesterday, hands folded on the table that cost more than his yearly salary. Tom stood at the head, but this time his composure cracked before he even began. "Yesterday I asked you to trust me. Today I need to tell you why." The room stilled. 5 years ago, Tom's voice caught. He cleared his throat, started again. 5 years ago, on a Thursday night in March, Ray Brooks found my son in the 3rd-floor executive restroom. Eunice's pen stopped moving. Noah had. Tom gripped the back of his chair. He'd overdosed. Heroin. He was 28, visiting me at work, said he needed to use the bathroom. When he didn't come back, I assumed he'd left. Gone home. The words came harder now, pulled from somewhere deep. Ray was doing his rounds, found Noah on the floor, barely breathing, blue lips. Someone inhaled sharply. Ray kept his eyes on his hands. Ray didn't just call 911. Tom's voice broke completely. He stayed, kept Noah's airway clear, talked to him the whole time, telling him to hang on, that his daddy loved him, that it wasn't his time yet. Tears rolled down Tom's face unchecked. When the paramedics arrived, Ray could have made himself scarce. Could have let the story spread. CEO's junkie son found half dead in company bathroom. Instead, he met them at the service elevator, kept it quiet. When I arrived at the hospital, shaking, destroyed, Ray was there, mopping the same spot over and over in the hallway. Board member Margaret Chen pulled tissues from her purse, passed them down the table. I tried to thank him. Tried to. Tom laughed bitterly. I offered him money, a promotion, anything. You know what he said? The room waited. He said, "Your boy needs you now, Mr. Hale. Go be with your boy." Eunice pressed a tissue to her eyes. For 5 years, Ray Brooks never told a soul, never mentioned it, never held it over me. Just kept coming to work, kept cleaning our messes, kept treating everyone with the same quiet dignity. The man who saved my son's life has been invisible to most of you, to most of us. Tom finally looked directly at Ray. A man who saves a life and asks for no thanks, who guards another family's shame as carefully as his own. That's the only man I trust to guide us now. The silence stretched, heavy with unshed tears and shifting perspectives. Christ, Gavin muttered, but even his cynicism sounded hollow. Noah's been clean 4 years now, Tom continued. Has a job, an apartment, a future. Because Ray Brooks knew that every life, even one society writes off, deserves another chance. Margaret Chen openly wept. 2 other board members dabbed their eyes. Even the lawyers looked affected. This is what I'm asking us to build, a company that sees people the way Ray saw my son that night, as human beings worthy of saving. Ray finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Mr. Hale, please. I just did what anybody would." "No." Tom's voice gained strength. "No, Ray. Most people would have taken pictures, would have gossiped, would have used it as leverage. You protected my son's dignity when he had none left to protect himself. The morning sun slanted through the boardroom windows, catching the tears on multiple faces. If there are no objections, Eunice said, voice thick, I move to formally recognize Ray Brooks as Chief Consultant for the Rehire Values Panel with full board support. Seconded, Margaret said immediately. The vote was unanimous. Even Gavin raised his hand, though his jaw stayed clenched. By afternoon, the story had leaked. Someone, maybe a secretary, maybe a board member with a conscience, whispered to a reporter. The headlines shifted. CEO credits janitor with saving son's life. The night custodian who became a company's conscience. From overdose to oversight. The secret debt behind Whitestone's shocking reset. The protests outside quieted. Some signs came down. People wanted to know more about Ray Brooks. That evening, Ray and Ruby sat on their tiny porch, sharing a bowl of popcorn. Fireflies blinked in the small patch of grass that passed for their yard. The air hung thick with humidity and the sound of crickets. "Daddy?" Ruby's voice was small. "Is it true? What they're saying on TV?" Ray watched a firefly land on the porch rail, its light pulsing. "What are they saying, baby?" "That you saved a man. Mr. Fland, Hale's son." The firefly lifted off, disappearing into the growing dark. "Yes." "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Ray pulled his daughter closer, her head fitting perfectly under his chin. "Some things we keep quiet, baby, until it's time." "Was it scary?" "Very scary." "But you stayed." "I stayed." Ruby was quiet for a moment. Then, "That's why Mr. Hale picked you, because you stay." Ray kissed the top of her head, breathing in the smell of her strawberry shampoo. "Maybe so, baby. Maybe so." The fireflies danced in the darkness, tiny lights refusing to be extinguished. The familiar rhythm of night work settled around Ray like an old coat. 3 days after the board meeting, he'd asked Tom if he could keep his cleaning shifts while handling the panel duties during the day. Tom had looked surprised, then understanding crossed his face. "Whatever keeps you grounded, Ray." The building felt different at night now. Security guards nodded with something approaching reverence. The few late-working executives actually saw him, really saw him, for the first time. Ray preferred the old invisibility, but that ship had sailed. He pushed his cart down the executive corridor, wheels squeaking softly against marble. The offices stood empty, computers sleeping, desk lamps dark. Ray hummed, "Wade in the Water," the melody echoing off glass walls. "Mr. Brooks?" Ray turned. Eunice Park stood in the hallway, her silver hair catching the emergency lighting. At 70, she moved with the careful precision of someone who'd learned that rushing rarely helped anything. "Mrs. Park, you're here late. Board documents." She held up a thick folder. "Though I suspect you know all about late nights in this building." Ray resumed mopping, comfortable with the motion. 23 years of them. Eunice watched him work for a moment, then reached into her blazer pocket. She pulled out a small yellow square. "I've been collecting these." Ray's hand stilled on the mop handle. The sticky note in Eunice's fingers read, "Your best is enough." "It always has been." "Found that one on my desk 6 months ago," Eunice said. "The morning after the Hartley acquisition fell through, I was ready to resign. Felt like I'd failed everyone." Ray kept his eyes on the floor. "Then there's this one." Another yellow square appeared. "From 2 years ago, the work matters, even when no one's watching." That appeared the night after my husband's funeral. I'd come to the office because I couldn't bear the empty house. "Mrs. Park. 17 notes, Mr. Brooks. I've kept them all." Eunice's voice carried the same tone she'd used in her teaching days, gentle but brooking no argument. Started asking around, quietly. "Margaret Chen has 9. That young man in IT, Marcus, he has 23. Framed one above his desk." Ray dunked the mop, wrung it out. The splash echoed. The handwriting was the giveaway. Eunice continued. Same as your signature on the cleaning logs, though I suspect you meant to keep it anonymous forever. Just little reminders, Ray's voice came out rough. Floors aren't the only things need shining. Eunice stepped closer. How many years have you been leaving them? Don't rightly recall. Ray? He sighed. Maybe 15 years, started after Lila passed. Couldn't sleep, would come in earlier. Saw people's spaces, their photos, their stress balls and worry stones. Figured everybody needs a kind word sometimes. 15 years of kindness, with no signature. Kindness doesn't need a signature. Eunice pulled out her phone, showed him a photo. A bulletin board covered in yellow squares, must have been 40 or 50 notes. That's in HR. Marta started collecting them 3 years ago. Employees bring her the ones they find, wanting to know who writes them. She calls it the Hope Board. Ray's throat tightened. You've been holding this company together with 3-cent sticky notes and $2 words, Ray Brooks, long before Tom noticed. Long before any of us noticed. Down the hall, an elevator dinged. Gavin Rusk stepped out, his face souring when he spotted them. Eunice and our new consultant. The pause before the last word dripped acid. Planning the company's future over mop water? Just retrieving documents, Gavin. Eunice's tone could have frozen lake water. Gavin's Italian leather shoes clicked closer. You know, Ray, some board members are concerned. A janitor deciding who gets hired back? It's unprecedented, inappropriate even. Good thing I'm not deciding, Ray said, pushing the mop in smooth strokes. Just asking questions. Yes, I've heard about your questions. Tell me who you've lifted up. Very touching. Gavin straightened his tie. But companies aren't run on feelings. They're run on numbers, metrics, measurable outcomes. Like the measurable outcome of your son's third-quarter profits? Eunice asked innocently. Oh, wait, that was Ray saving his life. My mistake. Gavin's face flushed. That's a separate matter entirely. Is it? Eunice tucked the sticky notes back in her pocket. Seems to me Ray's been generating ROI for years, just not the kind that shows up in spreadsheets. This is exactly the problem, Gavin's voice rose. We're letting sentiment override sense. A janitor shouldn't be running the company regardless of his personal heroics. Ray stopped mopping, looked Gavin straight in the eye. Not trying to run anything, Mr. Rusk, just trying to help folks see each other clear. Sometimes that's all anybody needs. Gavin's mouth opened, closed. He turned on his heel, marched back to the elevator. You've made an enemy there, Eunice said quietly. Made worse things. Ray resumed mopping. He'll come around or he won't. Eunice gathered her folders. Ray, don't stop leaving the notes. Even after all this settles, people need them. They need to know someone sees them. She walked away, her footsteps fading into carpet. Ray finished the executive floor, moved down to the lobby. The vast space echoed with emptiness, moonlight streaming through glass walls. He positioned his cart near the reception desk, grabbed fresh water. That's when he saw it. A yellow sticky note on his cart's handle. Not his handwriting, the letters were rounder, more careful. Even the mop man needs lifting sometimes. Ray looked around the empty lobby. Security cameras blinked red in corners. No one in sight. He peeled off the note, held it up to the light. The paper trembled slightly in his calloused fingers. In 23 years, no one had ever left him a note. He folded it carefully, placed it in his shirt pocket, right above his heart, where Lila's photo used to rest during her chemo treatments. The moon crossed behind clouds. Ray stood alone in the darkness, half smiling, half afraid, wondering who else had been watching in the shadows all these years. The boardroom clock showed 9:30 when Gavin Rusk rose from his leather chair, a manila folder thick as a Bible in his manicured hands. Fellow board members, I've called this emergency session because we face a crisis of leadership. Tom Hale sat at the head of the oak table, fingers steepled, watching Gavin pace like a prosecutor. What we're witnessing isn't innovation, it's recklessness. Gavin slapped the folder on the table. A dereliction of fiduciary duty. That's a serious accusation, Eunice said from her seat. These are serious times. Gavin opened the folder, began distributing packets. Stock price down 12%, major investors calling for explanations, and our CEO has handed company operations to a janitor. That's not accurate, Tom started. Isn't it? Gavin's voice cut sharp. Ray Brooks chairs the rehire panel. A man with no business degree, no management experience, no understanding of market dynamics. Board member Harrison Whitley, silver-haired and liver-spotted, squinted at the documents. These projections show potential losses of $40 million in the first quarter alone, Gavin finished. If we continue this experiment. Those are worst-case scenarios, Tom said, based on precedent. Show me one Fortune 500 company that survived putting sentiment over shareholder value. Margaret Chen, the youngest board member, shifted uncomfortably. The reset is only 2 weeks. Surely we can 2 weeks to destroy decades of reputation. Gavin moved behind Tom's chair. I've been fielding calls all morning. The press is having a field day. Whitestone goes woke, one headline said. Another called it corporate suicide by compassion. The press always sensationalizes, Eunice said. Do they? Gavin pulled out his phone, began reading. Janitor Gate. How one man's sob story hijacked a corporation. That's from the Financial Tribune. Our own industry Bible. Tom's jaw tightened. Ray Brooks saved my son's life. And we're all grateful. Gavin's tone suggested otherwise. But personal debt doesn't justify corporate destruction. You're thinking like a father, not a CEO. Maybe that's exactly what this company needs. What it needs is stable leadership. Gavin returned to his folder, pulled out another document. I'm filing a motion of no confidence. The room went airless. You need 2/3 majority, Tom said quietly. I'm aware. Gavin looked around the table. Harrison? Margaret? Janet? I'm asking you to consider the employees whose retirement funds are tied to our stock, the suppliers who depend on our stability. The communities we serve. Harrison cleared his throat. Tom, I respect what you're trying to do, but nothing. Either we believe in second chances, or we don't. This isn't about belief, Gavin pressed. It's about responsibility. We have a duty to our shareholders. We have a duty to be human beings, Eunice shot back. That's exactly the emotional thinking that's destroying us. Gavin's mask slipped, revealing genuine fury. A janitor. We're letting a janitor. That janitor has shown more leadership in his quiet service than you have in all your presentations, Tom said. The room erupted in crosstalk. Accusations flew. Margaret Chen looked ready to cry. Harrison Whitley kept checking his phone, where texts from investors were piling up. By morning, the whispers had spread like spilled coffee through the company networks. Former employees, still on group chats, passed along rumors Tom might be forced out. Gavin was staging a coup. The reset might be canceled. Outside Whitestone's gates, the laid-off staff divided into camps. One group held signs reading, Ray Brooks, real leadership. Another cluster shouted that he was a tool, a puppet, the reason they were all suffering. My mortgage is due. Someone yelled at Ray's photo on a poster. How's your feel-good story gonna pay that? At Crescent Elementary, Ruby Brooks sat alone at lunch. Madison Fletcher, whose mom worked in accounting at Whitestone, slid her tray away. My mom says your dad stole everybody's jobs. He didn't steal nothing. Ruby's chin lifted, but her voice wobbled. Then why's he the only one still working? Because he's good. Good at being teacher's pet, another kid chimed in, or CEO's pet. Ruby's sandwich went untouched. When Ray picked her up that afternoon, she climbed into the truck without her usual chatter. Rough day, baby? She nodded against the window. Want to talk about it? Did you really take people's jobs, Daddy? Ray pulled over, turned to face his daughter. Her eyes were Lila's eyes, seeking truth. No, baby, Mr. Hale made a choice. A hard choice. But everyone's getting paid while we figure things out. Nobody's losing their house or going hungry. Then why are they so mad? Because change is scary, even good change, and when people get scared, sometimes they need someone to blame. Is it going to be okay? Ray pulled her close. With God's help, it will be. That evening, moths danced around the porch light while Ray sat in his father's old rocker. Pastor Leon's Lincoln pulled up, and the older man climbed out with his deliberate grace. Heard you had visitors at the school. News travels, always does. Leon settled into the other chair, its wood creaking. How's Ruby? Shaken, but strong. Like her mama. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to crickets and distant traffic. They're coming for Tom, Ray finally said. Gavin Rusk wants him out. When mercy rattles the halls of power, son, the proud always push back. I never asked for this. Moses never asked to lead Israel out of Egypt either. I'm no Moses, Pastor. No. You're Ray Brooks. And maybe that's exactly who God needs right now. Ray looked up at the night sky, where stars struggled against light pollution. Somewhere up there, Lila was watching. He could almost hear her voice. Stand tall, baby. The fight's just starting. The real battle was only just beginning. The morning after coup whispers spread through Crescent Falls like frost on windows, Tom and Ray met in what used to be the third-floor break room. Maintenance had worked through the night transforming it, vending machines wheeled out, folding chairs arranged in a circle, a whiteboard propped against the wall with Second Chances Charter written in Tom's careful hand. Not exactly the boardroom, Tom said, testing a wobbly chair. Good. Ray set his mop bucket by the door. Boardrooms make people forget they're human. The first applicants gathered in the hallway, their voices a nervous murmur through the door. Former executives in $1,000 suits sat next to cafeteria workers in their best church clothes. The old hierarchy had dissolved into shared uncertainty. Marta Delgado entered first, clutching a folder she didn't open. The HR director who'd processed hundreds of terminations now sat across from the janitor she'd barely noticed for 15 years. Morning, Marta. Ray. She smoothed her skirt. Eyes darting between him and Tom. I brought my resume. Won't need that. Ray leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Just want to ask you something. Tell me about a time you lifted someone up. Marta blinked. I'm sorry? Someone you helped. Not because it was your job, because it was right. She opened her mouth, closed it, her professional mask cracked. There was an intern, 2 summers ago. Carmen. Brilliant girl, first in her family to finish college. Like me. Marta's voice softened. She never said anything, but I noticed things. Same dress 3 days running. Skipping lunch. Living on break room coffee. Tom watched Ray, saw him lean in the way he'd lean into mopping a stubborn stain patient, focused. Her landlord was threatening eviction. She was too proud to ask for help, too scared to tell anyone. Marta twisted her wedding ring. I covered 3 months' rent, told her it was a housing assistance program I'd found, made up paperwork to make it look official. She ever find out? At her graduation, she hugged me and whispered, I know what you did. We both cried in the parking lot. Ray nodded slow. Where is she now? Running a nonprofit in Detroit, helping other first-generation graduates. Marta's eyes glistened. She sends me pictures of every kid she helps. Tom made a note. Ray stood, extended his hand. Welcome back, Marta. She shook it, confused. That's it? No competency assessment, no strategic planning questions? You planned a strategy to save someone's dignity. That's all the assessment I need. After Marta left, dabbing her eyes, Tom whispered, The board's going to question this approach. Let them. Marcus Washington came next, the security guard who worked nights. Ray had passed him countless times, 2 men nodding in the fluorescent half-light of 3 a.m. Tell me about lifting someone up, Marcus. The big man shifted, his uniform creaking. Not sure it counts as lifting. Try me. There's kids in my neighborhood, Riverside Projects. After my shift, I teach them math in the community center. Started when I found my nephew's homework, couldn't read a word of it. These new methods, he shook his head. So I learned it myself. YouTube University, my wife calls it. Now I got 12 kids showing up Tuesday mornings. Tuesday mornings, after your night shift. Yes, sir. When do you sleep? Marcus shrugged. Sleep's overrated. Those kids' futures aren't. They reinstated Marcus with a modified scheduled day shifts on Tuesdays so he could teach fresh instead of exhausted. The interviews continued. Amy Chen, a coder barely out of college, described teaching her apartment building's elderly residents to video call their grandchildren during lockdown. Mr. Petrov cried when he saw his grandson in Moscow. First time in 2 years. James, from accounts payable, had been secretly covering processing fees for small vendors so they'd get paid faster. These mom-and-pop suppliers, 30 days versus 45 days, might mean making rent or not. Each story peeled back another layer of the company Ray had cleaned for 15 years. Beneath the spreadsheets and PowerPoints, humans had been quietly caring for each other. By 4 o'clock, they'd reinstated 7 people. Not senior vice presidents and junior analysts, just people evaluated by their hearts. Tom stood at the whiteboard, adding names. At this rate, we'll need weeks. We'll need exactly the time it takes. Ray picked up his mop. Can't hurry, character judgment. That evening, the reinstated employees gathered in the cafeteria. Someone had brought grocery store cookies. Someone else made coffee in the industrial machine. They sat at round tables meant for 200, just 7 of them in the vast space. Feels like the first day of school, Amy said. Feels like church, Marcus countered. That testimony part where people share their struggles. Marta raised her paper cup. 2 second chances. To Ray Brooks, James added. For seeing us. They toasted with coffee and ate stale cookies like communion wafers. Ray mopped in the corner, listening to their voices bounce off the walls. For the first time since Tom's announcement, the building held something besides fear. Not quite celebration, too fragile for that, but hope, tentative as new ice. Maybe this could work, Marta whispered to Marcus. Maybe, he agreed, watching Ray work his mop in steady circles, turning dirty water clear. Maybe it could. The whiteboard in the converted break room looked like Ruby's homework circles and arrows, connecting words that wouldn't have appeared in any MBA textbook. Ray pointed to caregiving leave, with the mop handle he'd started using as a pointer. Not just for babies, he said, for aging parents, sick siblings, anybody who needs tending. Marta typed rapidly, translating Ray's plain speak into policy. How many days? Many as it takes, within reason. The lawyers will want specifics. Then we'll give them specifics that bend. Ray turned to Tom. Your mama still alive? Tom's jaw tightened. Alzheimer's unit. Fairview. You visit? Sundays. Sometimes. Should be any day you need. Without checking who's watching. Tom nodded slowly. Added his own note to the board. Marcus Washington had joined them, still in his security uniform. What about veterans? We got 7 on night shift alone, most of them driving forklifts when they used to drive tanks. Apprenticeship program, Ray said. Real skills, not charity. Electricians, IT, whatever they want to learn. Budget? Marta asked. Tom did quick math. We spent $2 million on the executive retreat last year. That'll cover it. The shareholders will see productivity rise when people aren't worried about their families falling apart. Tom's voice carried new steel. Next? They worked through lunch, empty sandwich wrappers piling up. Amy Chen suggested flex hours for parents. James wanted transparent salary bands posted publicly. Each addition made Marta's forehead crease deeper. This reads like a wish list, not a corporate policy. Good, Ray said. Wishes are just prayers waiting for paperwork. By Thursday, word had spread. Former employees lined up outside, not protesting now, but curious. some still angry, most confused, all watching. Ray interviewed 16 people that day. A mailroom clerk who'd organized a meal train for a colleague with cancer, a data analyst who'd tutored kids in coding at the library, an executive assistant who'd secretly covered her boss's mistakes for years while helping him manage his depression. "Why didn't you report his condition?" Tom asked her. "Because he was getting help. And he was a good man having bad years." She straightened her shoulders. "Isn't that what second chances means?" They reinstated her. And her boss, with the provision he continue therapy. The building felt different by Friday, still half empty, but the half that had returned moved with purpose. Conversations in hallways lasted longer. People ate lunch together instead of at their desks. "It's weird," Amy told Marcus by the elevators. "Like we're building something new instead of rebuilding something old." Maybe that's the point. From his glass office, Gavin watched it all. His calls to board members grew more urgent. "He's dismantling everything. Productivity will tank. We'll be a laughingstock." But the numbers didn't support him. Not yet. Early metrics showed people arriving earlier, staying focused, taking fewer sick days. Still, Gavin knew numbers could be twisted. He just needed the right angle. That evening, Ray pulled into his driveway to find Ruby on the front steps, backpack beside her, paper in hand. "Daddy, look what I made." The crayon drawing showed a tall figure in blue coveralls, holding a mop like a staff. Around him, smaller figures smiled. Above them all, in Ruby's careful printing, "My hero cleans more than floors. It's for Parent Pride Day." Everyone's bringing pictures of their moms and dads at work. Ray studied the drawing. In Ruby's eyes, he stood 10 feet tall. "Teacher says I can tell the whole class about how you're helping the company." She bounced on her toes. "Can I tell them about Mr. Tom's son and the sticky notes?" "Some stories we keep close, baby, but you can tell them your daddy tries to help people." "That's enough." He folded the drawing carefully, tucked it in his shirt pocket next to his heart. After dinner, after Ruby's bath and bedtime story, Ray sat on his porch. The night air carried the sound of televisions from neighboring houses, the bark of the Hendersons' dog, normal life continuing. His phone buzzed. Tom texting, "Board meeting Monday." Gavin's pushing hard. "Be ready," Ray typed back. "Always am." He didn't know about the other call happening across town. Gavin, bourbon in hand, cell phone pressed to his ear. "I need something that sticks," Gavin told the reporter. "Deep background for now, but dig into Brooks. Everyone's got something. Find it." "What's your angle here, Rusk? Why do you care if a janitor?" "Because this isn't how companies work. There's an order to things. A structure. You can't just—" Gavin paused, choosing words. "You can't elevate someone that far, that fast, without consequences. The market won't stand for it. And if Brooks is clean, nobody's clean. Not if you look hard enough." The reporter, hungry for a scandal that would trend, agreed. "Give me a week." Gavin hung up, stared out at the city lights. Below, Crescent Falls spread out like a circuit board, every light in its proper place. Except one janitor who'd somehow jumped circuits, threatening to short the whole system. "Let's see how long this janitor experiment lasts," he said to his reflection in the window. A week later, Saturday morning arrived bright and clear. Whitestone's lobby transformed overnight banners hanging from the mezzanine proclaimed "Second Chances, Shared Futures." Tables groaned under casseroles and pie plates donated by Shiloh Baptist St. Mary's and the Methodist Women's League. Ray arrived early, Ruby's hand in his. She wore her Sunday dress, yellow with daisies, hair in careful braids he'd managed after 3 YouTube tutorials. "Lot of people, Daddy. Just folks, baby. Same as us." But there were more than folks. News vans parked outside, reporters with notepads, former employees bringing spouses, children, parents. Some faces hard with skepticism, others soft with curiosity. Marcus and James strung lights, while Amy arranged name tags. Marta directed food placement with military precision. Tom stood near the entrance, greeting each arrival personally, shaking hands like a pastor at church doors. "Thank you for coming. Please, eat, listen, ask questions." By 10 o'clock, the lobby hummed with conversation. The Shiloh Baptist Choir, robed in purple, filled the space with "Wade in the Water," their voices echoing off marble walls. Children darted between adults' legs. Elderly board member Eunice Park held court near the coffee, explaining the charter to anyone who'd listen. Tom climbed the temporary platform at 11 sharp. The crowd quieted. "I know you're angry, confused. You have every right," his voice carried without shouting. "3 weeks ago, I made a decision that shook your lives. Today, I want to explain why." He talked about broken systems, about measuring worth by spreadsheets instead of spirits, about his own failures, the son he'd nearly lost to ambition's neglect, the employees he'd treated as numbers. "But one man showed me different. He's been showing us all, every night, when we weren't looking." Tom turned. "Ray Brooks, come up here." Ray's legs felt wooden. The crowd parted. Someone patted his shoulder. Another whispered, "Go on." He climbed the platform, work boots heavy on the steps. Tom handed him the microphone. Ray stared at hundreds of faces. His throat went dry. "I'm not much for speeches." Ruby tugged his sleeve. "Daddy." He looked down. She held a folded paper, the one she'd been working on all morning at the kitchen table. "Can I read something?" Her whisper carried through the microphone. Ray lifted her to the podium, his hand steadying her waist. She unfolded the paper with ceremony, cleared her throat like she'd seen important people do on TV. "This is something my daddy wrote. He doesn't know I kept it." She held up a yellow sticky note, edges worn from handling. "I found it on my lunchbox last year when Mommy went to heaven." The lobby fell silent. Ruby read, voice clear, "You're worth more than your fears. Shine anyway." A woman in the crowd made a sound, half gasp, half sob, then another. Ruby continued, "Daddy leaves these for people, on desks, on mirrors, on car windows. He thinks nobody knows, but I know. Because that's what heroes do. They help in secret." She folded the note carefully, looked up at the crowd. "He's not just a janitor, he's a helper, and Mr. Tom says that's what the company wants to be now. Helpers." The applause started slowly. Mrs. Chen clapping through tears, Marcus whistling. Then it built, washing over the lobby like thunder. People who'd stood stiff now moved forward. A woman grabbed Ray's hand. "You left me a note when my mother died. I never knew who. Mine said, 'Monday's just a day.' You're stronger than days. Start small. Clean one thing, then another." Stories poured out. Anonymous kindnesses traced back to their source. Ray stood frozen, Ruby still in his arms, as the crowd pressed close with gratitude. Tom took the microphone back. "This is what we're building on. Not profit margins, not market share. People who see each other, who lift each other. The Second Chances Charter isn't policy, it's promise." The crowd stayed until sunset, eating, talking, planning. Former employees signed up for the rehire panel. Community members volunteered for apprenticeship programs. The choir sang until they were hoarse. That night, Ray carried an exhausted Ruby to bed. She'd fallen asleep in the car, clutching the sticky note. He tucked her under her pink comforter, adjusted her nightlight, the one shaped like a crescent moon, her mother's last gift. Ruby stirred. "Daddy?" "Right here, baby." "Mommy would be proud, wouldn't she?" "Of what you're doing?" Ray's throat tightened. Lila's photo watched from the dresser, that smile that could light up midnight shifts, the eyes that saw good in everyone. "Yes, baby, she would. She always said you were special, that you saw people's hearts, not their outsides. Your mommy was smart. I miss her." "Me too." Ruby rolled over, already drifting back to sleep. "But we're doing okay, aren't we? We're helping people like she did. We're trying." "That's enough," she mumbled, her mother's words in her 8-year-old voice. "Trying's enough." Ray sat in the dark, watching her breathe. Outside, Crescent Falls settled into sleep. Somewhere across town, Gavin Rusk sat in his home office, laptop screen casting blue light on his face. News coverage scrolled past. Emotional day at Whitestone. Janitor's daughter steals hearts. Second Chances charter gained support. He slammed the laptop shut. The sound echoed through his empty house. Sentiment doesn't run companies, he told the darkness. This won't last. His phone buzzed. The reporter, still digging. Give me more time, Gavin typed back. Hurry. 2 weeks into the charter, the atrium transformed. Not just the decorations, gold balloons spelling second chances, tables draped in white, but the air itself. People moved differently, talked differently. Like they remembered why they came to work. Ray stood near the coffee station, watching Marcus from IT explain coding to a Vietnam veteran who just joined the apprentice program. At the next table, 3 former executives sat with maintenance staff, planning a mentorship schedule. No hierarchy. Just people. Never seen anything like it. Marta appeared beside him, holding productivity reports. Up 12%. In 2 weeks. People work harder when they know they matter. The board's noticing. Even the skeptics. Tom's voice carried across the atrium. Could everyone gather round? The crowd formed a semicircle. Tom stood beside a covered display, Eunice Park at his shoulder. 2 weeks ago, we started something nobody thought would work. A company built on second chances, on seeing each other. He paused, scanning faces. The numbers speak productivity up, morale soaring. But numbers aren't why we're here. He pulled the covering away. A brass plaque gleamed. The Lila Brooks Fund for Veterans, Caregivers Healing Hands. Helping Hearts in memory of Lila Brooks, 1970, 2023. Nurse, mother, Light Ray's knees buckled slightly. Someone steadied him, Mrs. Chen, from accounting. Tom continued. Ray's wife Leela ran free clinics from their garage, treated veterans who couldn't afford care, watched neighbors' kids so parents could work night shifts. She embodied what we're trying to build. A photo stood beside the plaque. Lila in her scrubs, that radiant smile, ruby on her hip. This fund will train veterans for healthcare roles. Support employees caring for elderly parents or special needs children. Because Lila knew we all know that work means nothing if we can't care for our own. The applause started soft, built to thunder. People cried openly. A young mother clutched her chest. She'd been missing shifts to care for her autistic son. An army medic who'd been stocking shelves pumped his fist. Ray couldn't move, couldn't speak. Ruby wasn't here at school, but she'd know tonight. Her mother's name on something permanent, something good. Speech, someone called. Come on, Ray. He shook his head, but hands pushed him forward gently. The microphone waited. Lila would have, his voice cracked. He started again. Lila would have laughed at her name on something this fancy. Chuckles rippled through the crowd. She'd say, "Don't name it after me. Name it after the people it helps." But she'd be wrong, because her name reminds us why we help. He touched the photo's frame. She used to come home, 3 a.m., feet swollen, still smiling. I'd ask how she did it. She'd say, "Ray, everybody's fighting something. The least we can do is fight alongside them." His voice grew stronger. That's what this charter is, fighting alongside each other, not for profit, for people. The room erupted. Tom gripped Ray's shoulder. Someone started singing an old hymn Lila used to hum. Others joined. The atrium filled with voices, unpolished but unified. Eunice Park leaned close to Tom. "You've turned a corporation into a community." Tom's eyes stayed on Ray. "It's him. He's the soul of this place." A photographer caught the moment. Tom and Ray, side by side, Lila's photo between them, employees embracing in the background. It would run in tomorrow's papers. Above the fold, the celebration continued past sunset. People shared stories of Lila, how she'd bandaged a warehouse worker's hand for free, how she'd organized meal trains for laid-off families. Ray listened to memories he'd never heard, his wife's kindness reaching further than he'd known. Finally, the atrium emptied. Janitors, his former night shift crew, began cleaning, but gently, like they were tending something sacred. Ray lingered, alone now except for the photo. Lila smiled at him across the impossible distance between living and gone. "We did it, love." He traced her face through the glass. "Ruby's strong. Like you. The company's changing, like you always said it could." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I miss you every second, but I'm trying to shine anyway, like you taught me." The atrium lights dimmed automatically, energy-saving measures. Ray turned to leave. 20 blocks away, Gavin Rusk sat in darkness, office lit only by computer screens. Stock tickers glowed red. Whitestone down 2 points. Nothing dramatic, but enough. His phone buzzed. The reporter found something, the arrest record, and more. Gavin smiled, the kind that never reached his eyes. "Now," he told his reflection in the black window, "it begins." He opened a new email. Subject line, "Urgent. Board members only." His fingers flew across keys, each word a blade wrapped in silk. Outside his window, Crescent Falls slept peacefully. The moon hung like a promise. In homes across town, employees set alarms for tomorrow, eager to return to work for the first time in years. They didn't see the storm gathering, but Ray, driving home through empty streets, felt it somehow, a coldness despite the warm night. He glanced at Lila's photo on his dashboard, the one where she held Ruby as a baby, both laughing at something beyond the frame. "Protect us," he whispered. "Whatever's coming, protect us." The photo smiled back, silent and eternal. The morning started wrong. Ray felt it before he saw it, the security guard's nervous glance, the receptionist's forced smile, the hushed voices that stopped when he passed. Then Marta burst through the break room door, printout shaking in her hands. "Ray, you need to see this." The headline screamed, "Janitor with criminal past running Whitestone investors demand answers." Below, his mugshot, 19 years old, terrified. A kid who'd been driving while black in the wrong neighborhood. "It's everywhere," Marta whispered. "CNN, Fox, the financial channels." Ray set down his coffee cup carefully, like it might shatter. The article twisted everything, made it sound like armed robbery instead of a traffic stop gone wrong. Failed to mention the charges were dismissed. Failed to mention the officer was later fired for falsifying reports. This was 36 years ago. His voice stayed steady, but his hands weren't. "I know. Everyone here knows." But her phone buzzed. Then another. Then dozens, a symphony of panic. Tom's voice boomed from the hallway. "Conference room. Now." The walk felt endless. Employees stared. Some with sympathy, others with doubt creeping in like fog. The conference room TV played split screens, talking heads, dissecting Ray's past, stock prices tumbling, protesters outside demanding transparency. Anonymous sources claim Brooks shows favoritism in rehiring, a reporter said. Questions mount about CEO Hale's judgment. Tom slammed the remote down, cracking the table. They took a dismissed case from 1987 and made him sound like Al Capone. Eunice studied her tablet. 17 investment firms requesting emergency calls. The teacher's pension fund wants an explanation by noon. Explanation for what? Tom's face flushed red. That a black teenager got profiled? That charges were dropped because they were garbage? Tom, Eunice's voice carried decades of boardroom battles. This has Gavin's fingerprints everywhere. The timing, the anonymous sources. He's orchestrating this. Ray stood. "I should resign." "No." Tom and Eunice said it together. "This isn't about me anymore. It's hurting everyone." Ray's phone rang. "Ruby's school. Mr. Brooks? Ruby's very upset. You should come." The drive took 7 minutes, felt like 7 hours. He found Ruby in the nurse's office, face puffy from crying. "Daddy." She flew into his arms. "Baby, what happened?" they said. They said you're a criminal, that you went to jail, that you're the reason their parents lost jobs. Each word a knife. Madison's mom told her not to play with me anymore. Ray carried her to the car, feeling the weight of every stare from the office windows. At home, he sat her on the couch, knelt to her eye level. "Ruby, I need to tell you something. When I was young, before I met Mommy, police stopped me one night. Why? Because I was driving in a neighborhood where they didn't think I belonged. They arrested me even though I didn't do anything wrong." Her forehead wrinkled. "That's not fair." "No, baby, it wasn't. The judge said so too. Let me go. But the paper that recorded it stayed. Did you ever do bad things?" Ray thought of every moment of his life. The anger after coming home from the Gulf, the nights he drank too much before Lila saved him, the harsh words he wished he could take back. "I made mistakes, but I never stopped trying to be good. And sometimes, Ruby, when you try to help people shine, others who like the darkness get scared. Like when I turned on the light and the roaches ran." Despite everything, he smiled. "Exactly like that." His phone buzzed. "Tom, emergency board meeting. Gavin's calling for your suspension." That evening, Tom paced his office like a caged lion. Eunice sat calm as stone. "They're crucifying a man who saved my son." "That's the point." Eunice pulled up financial records on her laptop. "Look, 3 major investors connected to Gavin's consulting firm. They started selling yesterday before the story broke. He planned this, down to the minute." Tom slammed his fist on the desk. Papers jumped. Ray found Noah dying, kept him alive, never asked for recognition, never used it for gain. And this is how we repay him? The board meets tomorrow at 9. Gavin has 4 votes, maybe 5. And if they suspend Ray? The charter dies, employees lose faith, stock price crashes. Gavin positions himself as the savior who returns things to normal. Tom stared at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Ray was probably tucking Ruby into bed, telling her everything would be okay. We fight back. How? I don't know yet, but we fight. Miles away, Ray sat at his kitchen table. The arrest report lay before him, the original, not the twisted version in the news. He'd kept it all these years, a reminder of where he'd been, how far he'd come. Ruby slept upstairs, exhausted from tears. Her drawing from last week, "My hero cleans more than floors," hung on the refrigerator. He thought of Lila, how she'd held him when the memories got bad, how she'd never seen him as anything but whole. "Lord," he whispered to the empty kitchen, "how much more?" The house creaked in answer. Wind rattled windows, but no voice from heaven, no burning bush, just a man at a table with old wounds torn fresh, wondering if morning would bring redemption or ruin. His phone lit up, a text from an unknown number. "This is just the beginning. Resign tomorrow or it gets worse." Ray deleted it, turned off the phone, sat in darkness. But even in darkness, he knew something the sender didn't. Floors shine brightest after the darkest stains are scrubbed away, and Ray Brooks knew how to scrub. The boardroom air could have been cut with a knife. Gavin stood at the head of the table, suit pressed sharp enough to draw blood. "Shareholders have lost confidence. Our stock dropped 12% in 2 days. He clicked through slides. Red arrows pointing down. "This experiment has failed." Tom sat rigid in his chair, Eunice beside him, jaw set like granite. "The charter's working. Productivity is up. Productivity means nothing if investors flee." Gavin turned to the other board members. "We need stable leadership. Traditional leadership." Board member Harrison, who'd wept at Tom's story about Noah just days ago, wouldn't meet Tom's eyes. "Gavin has a point. The market's spooked. The market's been manipulated." Eunice shot back. "Prove it." Gavin's smile never touched his eyes. Silence. "I move for Tom's immediate resignation." Gavin's words dropped like stones into water. "All in favor?" 4 hands rose, then 5. Tom's shoulders sagged. "If I resign, the charter continues?" That's a separate discussion. No, it's the same discussion. Gavin shrugged. The board will evaluate all programs based on fiscal responsibility. Translation: dead on arrival. Tom looked at each board member, people he'd worked with for years, who'd eaten at his home, met his family. I'll tender my resignation. Effective immediately. And Mr. Brooks? What about him? The negative publicity requires action. I move for administrative leave pending full investigation. Investigation of what? A dismissed charge from 36 years ago? Of his fitness to represent this company in any capacity? More hands rose, the verdict sealed. Tom stood, straightened his tie. You're making a mistake. The only mistake was letting a janitor think he could change anything. Tom walked out. The click of the door behind him sounded like a coffin closing. Word spread through the building like wildfire. Within minutes, phones buzzed with the news alert. Whitestone CEO resigns amid controversy. The lobby that had thundered with applause 2 weeks ago fell silent. Employees gathered their things quietly. The Second Chances banner still hung from the ceiling, now looking like a bad joke. Ray arrived to collect his personal items, Marta escorting him like a prison guard she didn't want to be. Ray, I'm sorry. Not your fault. He walked to his supply closet, 30 years of nights in this building. His name tag, a photo of Ruby and Lila, tucked behind cleaning schedules. The sticky notepad he used for encouragements. He picked up his mop bucket. The wheels squeaked as they always did. Through the lobby, he walked. The same marble floors he'd polished before dawn for decades. Employees lined the walls, but none met his eyes. Some looked away in shame, others in disappointment, a few in anger. The security guard he'd gotten rehired turned his back. The coder whose grandmother Ray had visited in the hospital studied her phone. Only one voice called out little Tyler from accounting, whom Ray had found crying in the bathroom after his divorce. Thank you, Mr. Brooks. But even Tyler's voice was swallowed by the silence. Outside, reporters swarmed like vultures. Ray, did you know about your criminal past? Was this all a publicity stunt? Are you the reason hundreds lost their jobs? Microphones shoved at his face, cameras flashing. And there, by the truck, Ruby waited with Marta. Ray pushed through, shielding his daughter. Excuse us, please. But they pressed closer. Ruby pressed her face into Ray's shirt, trembling. Mr. Brooks, what do you say to employees who trusted you? He lifted Ruby into the truck, buckled her in. Closed the door gently. Then he turned to the cameras. I say that light always scares those who profit from darkness. He climbed into the driver's seat, started the engine. Ruby's voice came small. Daddy, did you do something bad? His hands gripped the steering wheel. In the rear-view mirror, Whitestone's glass towers reflected the setting sun like they were on fire. No, baby. His voice cracked like thin ice. Someone is just scared of the light you carry. They drove in silence. Ruby reached over, taking his hand. Miles away, Tom sat alone in his office, former office now. Maintenance would box his things tomorrow. 30 years of leadership reduced to cardboard and tape. On his desk, Noah's 5-year sobriety chip caught the dying light. His son, alive because a janitor cared more about a human being than about recognition. Had it all been for nothing? The charter? The vision of a company with a soul crushed under Gavin's Italian leather shoes? He picked up his phone. No messages from board members. No support from colleagues. Just silence. The weight of failure pressed down like the whole building sat on his chest. That night, Ray returned to Shiloh Baptist. Pastor Leon had given him keys years ago. Sometimes a man needs to pray with his hands, he'd said. The sanctuary echoed empty. Ray filled his bucket. The familiar smell of pine sol, the weight of the mop handle worn smooth by his palms. He started with the altar, working backward. The same pattern he'd used for 20 years here. But tonight, each stroke felt heavier. Each breath harder, The floor reflected the stained glass windows, saints and angels looking down, watching him scrub. He thought of Lila, how she'd believed he could be more than anyone saw, how she'd kissed his calloused hands and called them beautiful. He thought of Ruby, having to face school tomorrow, the whispers, the pointed fingers. He thought of Tom, of Noah, of all the people who'd believed, for just a moment, that a company could have a heart. The mop handle slipped from his hands, clattered on the floor. Ray sank to his knees, the bucket beside him, dirty water reflecting his face. "I don't know if I can shine anymore." The words echoed back from the empty pews. No answer. No comfort. Just a man on his knees in an empty church, wondering if some stains were too deep to ever come clean. The fellowship hall stretched empty before Ray, 40 feet of linoleum that had seen thousands of church suppers, wedding receptions, funeral repasts. Tonight, it was just him and the floor. His knuckles were white around the mop handle, back and forth, back and forth. The rhythm usually soothed him. Not tonight. Water sloshed in the bucket. Pine sol stung his nostrils, his shoulders burned from the force he put behind each stroke. Clean, make it clean. Make something clean. The floor began to gleam, reflecting the fluorescent lights above. Ray stopped, leaning on the mop, chest heaving. In the wet shine, his face stared back tired eyes, gray stubble, the face of a man who'd been told he didn't belong where he'd given his best years. "What's the point if they don't see me for who I am?" The words came out raw. No one to hear them but God, and the empty folding chairs stacked against the wall. Footsteps echoed from the doorway, soft, unhurried. "Figured I'd find you here." Pastor Leon carried 2 paper cups, steam rising. He'd changed from his suit into worn jeans and a Shiloh Baptist softball team shirt from 1998. Ray didn't look up. Floor needed doing. Floor's been cleaned since Tuesday when Mrs. Henderson's crew came through. Leon pulled out a folding chair. The metal legs scraped against the fresh-mopped floor, leaving marks. He pulled out another, setting it beside the first. "Sit. I'm working." "Ray, sit." Ray set the mop against the wall, took the chair. His knees creaked. Everything creaked these days. Leon handed him the coffee. 2 sugars, no cream. Been making it the same way for you 15 years. They sat in silence. The coffee was too hot, but Ray drank anyway. The burn felt real. "You know what I love about floors?" Leon said finally. Ray waited. "They only shine after they've been gone over again and again. First pass, you just move the dirt around. Second pass, you start to see progress. But that shine, that mirror finish you're famous for, that takes going over the same spot until your back aches and your hands blister." Leon sipped his coffee. "That's how people are, too." Ray's shoulders sagged. The fight went out of him like air from a punctured tire. "They think I'm a criminal. They think a lot of things. Thinking don't make it true." Ruby had to hear it. "My baby girl." "And what did you tell her?" "That someone was scared of her light." Leon nodded. "Good answer. True answer." They sat. The floor dried around them, leaving perfect shine except for the marks from their chair legs. "I've been scrubbing floors 40 years, Ray said. "Thought if I did it well enough, if I was quiet enough, helpful enough, maybe they'd see me. Really see me." "They did see you." "That's why Gavin's scared." Ray looked up. "Men like him, they understand power, money, position. But you," Leon gestured with his cup, "you got something he can't buy or steal. You got character. And for 2 weeks, this whole town saw what a company could be if character mattered more than credentials. Lot of good it did. You don't know that yet." Across town, Tom sat in shadow. The executive floor was empty. Security would escort him out in the morning, but tonight no one had thought to revoke his key card. Noah's sobriety chip caught the street light from the window. 5 years clean. 5 years since Ray Brooks had found his son dying in a bathroom stall 3 floors down. Tom remembered that call. Ray's voice, steady. "Mr. Hale, You need to come to the building. Bring your car, not an ambulance. Your boy needs help, but he needs his dignity too. No judgment. No questions about how the CEO's son had ended up overdosing in a company bathroom. Just compassion. The chip was worn smooth from Noah carrying it. Tom picked it up, running his thumb over the edges. I can't let them erase the man who saved my boy. The words hung in the empty office. His phone buzzed. Eunice. Tom. Don't give up. I'm calling an emergency session. It's over, Eunice. No, it's not. Gavin overplayed his hand. The arrest record? I've been digging. 3 board members are asking questions about how he got it, why he leaked it. Tom straightened. There's more. People are coming forward. Employees Ray helped. Dozens of them. They want to be heard. Gavin won't allow. Gavin doesn't own this company. The board does. And I've got the votes for a hearing. Back at Shiloh, Ray stood. His coffee had gone cold. Leon stood with him. I should get home. Ruby needs me. She does. But you needed this first. Leon squeezed his shoulder. The floor is not the only thing that needs repeated attention to shine, Ray. Sometimes we got to go over ourselves again and again too. Strip away what others put on us. Find the original finish underneath. Ray nodded. Started to leave, then turned back. Pastor? Yeah? Pray with me? They knelt right there on the still damp floor. 2 old men in an empty hall. Ray's voice came quiet. Lord, if there's still light in me, show me the way. Leon added, and give him strength for whatever comes next. Amen. Ray stood. His knees protested, his back ached, but something in his chest felt lighter. Not healed. Not yet. But lighter. The vinyl booth at May's Diner had seen better days. Duct tape held a split in the red seat, and the Formica table bore coffee rings from decades of early morning conversations. Ray arrived first, chose a corner spot with a view of both exits' old habits from his service days. Tom entered next, baseball cap pulled low. Without his suit, he looked older. Smaller. Eunice came last, her cane clicking against the checkered floor. She slid in beside Ray, ordered 3 coffees, and a stack of pancakes to share. We don't have much time, she said once May shuffled back to the kitchen. The board meets Thursday. That gives us 2 days. Tom pushed eggs around his plate. It won't matter. Gavin has the votes. He has 3 votes, maybe 4. Eunice pulled out a legal pad covered in her precise handwriting, but there are 12 board members. If we can swing 3 more, with what? Tom's voice carried defeat. My resignation's already typed. With the truth. Eunice tapped her pad. I'm calling a special hearing. Open testimony. Any employee, current or former, can speak. Ray set down his coffee. They won't come. People are scared. Some are. But I've been making calls. Eunice flipped a page. Maria Rodriguez from the cafeteria wants to talk about how you visited her son in the hospital. Helped with the bills. Ray shifted uncomfortably. James Patterson, the security guard, says you taught him to read, spent your lunch breaks for 2 years working through books with him. That was private. Not anymore. Eunice's voice was steel wrapped in velvet. Privacy is a luxury we can't afford. Tom looked up. How many? So far. 17 confirmed. But word spreading. May refilled their coffees, waited until she left to continue. The truth only wins when it's spoken out loud, Eunice said. Gavin's been whispering in the dark. Time. We turned on the lights. Ray's phone buzzed. Another text. Then another. Is that work? Tom asked. Ray looked at the screen. Unknown numbers. He opened one. Mr. Brooks, I was night shift accounting 2018-2020. You left notes on my desk when I was going through my divorce. They kept me going. I want to help. Another. Ray, you probably don't remember me. Delivered supplies to the 3rd floor. You're the only one who knew my name. I'll be there Thursday. His phone kept buzzing. 5 messages. 10. 20. What is it? Eunice asked. Ray turned the phone so they could see. Message after message. Janitors, executives, security guards, accountants. All saying the same thing. They wanted to testify. Tom's eyes grew wet. I had no idea. That's the problem with doing good quietly, Eunice said. Sometimes you have to let it make noise. Wednesday passed in a blur. Ray's phone became a hotline. Veterans he'd connected with jobs, single mothers he'd watched kids for during night shifts. A junior executive who'd been ready to quit until she found one of his sticky notes. Your light matters more than their shadows. That evening, Ruby found him at the kitchen table, surrounded by scribbled names and phone numbers. Daddy? Yeah, baby? Are all these people your friends? Ray considered. I suppose they are. Then why do you look sad? He pulled her onto his lap. Because I never meant for it to be about me. I just wanted to help. Ruby played with his collar. Mrs. Johnson at school says helping is good, but letting people thank you is good too. It makes them feel better. From the mouths of babes. Can I come tomorrow? She asked. It might not be nice things they say. I know. But I want to be there. Ray hugged her tight. Then you'll come. Thursday morning arrived gray and humid. Thunderclouds gathered but hadn't broken. Ray dressed carefully, his one good shirt, the tie from Lila's funeral. Ruby wore her Sunday dress. They could hear the crowd before they saw it. Turning onto Corporate Drive, Ray stopped. The plaza in front of Whitestone was full. Not protesters this time, supporters. Signs reading Mercy Works and Second Chances Matter and Ray Brooks saved my life. Daddy, look, Ruby pointed. A group of veterans in uniform. The entire night cleaning crew. The Shiloh Baptist choir in their robes. Pastor Leon broke from the crowd. Didn't think you'd walk in alone, did you? Ray's throat closed. He managed, This is too much. No, son, this is exactly enough. Tom appeared at his other shoulder. Ready? Ray looked at the building where he'd cleaned floors for 15 years, where he'd been invisible until 2 weeks ago, where Gavin Rusk waited with his manufactured scandal and his boardroom coup. Then he looked at the crowd. His community. His testimony. Baby, he said to Ruby, this time the truth will shine. She squeezed his hand. Together, they walked through the doors. The oak boardroom had never held so many people. Chairs lined the walls, bodies pressed against windows, and the overflow crowd watched from screens in the lobby. The massive table sat like an island in a sea of humanity. Gavin Rusk entered last, his smile practiced and cold. He surveyed the crowd with satisfaction, witnesses to his triumph. His 3 allied board members flanked him like bodyguards. This is highly irregular, he announced, adjusting his gold cufflinks. A boardroom is no place for truth? Eunice Park's voice cut through. She stood at the head of the table, silver hair catching the light. The board will hear testimony relevant to Mr. Brooks' character and Mr. Hale's judgment. Unless you object to transparency, Mr. Rusk? Gavin's smile tightened. Of course not. Then we begin. Eunice nodded to the crowd. Who speaks first? A heavy-set woman in a cafeteria uniform raised her hand. Maria Rodriguez, her name tag read. She walked forward on unsteady legs. I work the breakfast shift, Maria began, voice shaking. 3 years ago my Isabella got leukemia, 8 years old. Her voice caught. I was sleeping in the hospital because I couldn't afford a hotel. Mr. Ray, he found out somehow, started bringing me dinner every night after his shift, sat with Isabella while I showered, read her stories. She pulled out a photograph, a little girl with no hair, beaming, Ray beside her hospital bed with a book. When she needed a bone marrow transplant, the bill was. Maria wiped her eyes. $40,000 after insurance. An envelope appeared in my locker. Cash. No note. But I knew. Security footage showed Ray at my locker at 3 a.m. Gavin shifted. That's very touching, but I'm not done. Maria's tears turned fierce. Isabella's alive because of him. She's 11 now, plays soccer. She looked directly at Gavin. You called him Just a janitor. He saved my baby." She sat down. The room stayed silent. A man in dress blues stood next Master Sergeant James Cooper, his uniform immaculate despite the empty left sleeve. "Came back from Afghanistan in pieces," he said simply. "Not just the arm. The inside pieces. Got a job here doing security. Night shift. Perfect for hiding." He paused, jaw working. 6 months in, I brought my service weapon to work. Planned to use it in the parking garage after my shift. Had my note written and everything. The room held its breath. Ray found me at 2 a.m. Don't know how he knew. Maybe the way I was walking. Maybe God told him. He sat with me on the concrete. Didn't try to grab the gun. Didn't preach. Just said, "You're not done shining, brother. The world needs your light." Cooper's voice broke. He stayed until sunrise. Got me into counseling. Checked on me every shift for a year. Never told anybody. Never asked for thanks. He turned to the board. "That man saved more than my life. He saved my soul." Before anyone could respond, Marta Delgado stood, carrying a box. "These are from Ray's locker," she said, lifting out sticky notes, hundreds of them. "He wrote extras, kept them ready." She began reading, "Your courage is quieter than fear, but stronger. The mountain looks impossible until you take the first step. You matter more than you know. Even diamonds need pressure to shine." Voice after voice joined in, employees reading notes they'd saved. "Your kids see a hero when they look at you. This storm will pass. You will remain. Grace is just courage wearing work clothes." The boardroom filled with a chorus of Ray's words, spoken by the people he'd lifted. Gavin's allies exchanged uncertain glances. Then the crowd parted. Noah Hale walked forward. Tom's son looked fragile in his plain button-down, 5-year sobriety chip clutched in his fist. His hands shook as he faced the board. "I'm nobody special," Noah began. "Just an addict who finally got clean. But 5 years ago, I was dying on a bathroom floor in this building." The room went silent as stone. "I'd stolen my dad's keycard. Came here to—" Noah swallowed. "To end it where he spent all his time, where he cared about everything except me." Tom made a sound half sob, half prayer. "I overdosed in the 3rd-floor bathroom, heroin and pills. Enough to kill me twice. Ray found me at 1:47 a.m. Noah's tears came freely now. "I was conscious for a few seconds while he held me, kept fading in and out. But I remember. I remember him holding my hand, calling me son, telling me, 'You're not alone, son. I've got you. Stay with me, son.'" His voice cracked completely. My own father hadn't called me son in years, but this stranger, this janitor, held my hand so I wouldn't die feeling alone. He prayed over me, sang to me, kept saying, "You're going to make it, son. You're going to shine again." Noah looked at Ray. "You saved my life, but more than that, you gave me the first love I'd felt in years. Pure love. Expecting nothing back." The room erupted, sobs from every corner. Board members who'd built careers on composure covered their faces. Even Gavin's allies wept openly. Through it all, Ray stood silent, tears streaming down his face. Ruby pressed against his leg, her small arms wrapped around him. Then one person stood. Then another. Then dozens. The applause started soft, a single pair of hands. Then it grew. Became thunder. Became worship. Ray Brooks, janitor, stood at the center of a standing ovation that shook the windows and rattled the oak table where power had always lived, until now. The morning arrived gray and uncertain. Rain tapped against the lobby windows where hundreds gathered, employees, families, reporters, all waiting. The board had deliberated through the night. Pizza boxes and coffee cups littered their meeting room. Eunice Park had counted votes 3 times to be certain. Now the oak doors opened. The chairwoman, Margaret Chen, walked to the microphone they'd set up in the lobby. Her hands trembled slightly as she unfolded the paper. Behind her, the full board filed out. Tom Hale stood to one side. Gavin Rusk to the other, his jaw tight. Ray held Ruby's hand near the back of the crowd. He'd worn his custodian uniform, the only suit he trusted. After extensive deliberation, Margaret began, her voice carrying across the marble expanse. The board has reached several decisions. The lobby fell silent. First, regarding Mr. Gavin Rusk. Gavin straightened his tie. The board finds Mr. Sile Rusk guilty of unethical conduct, including the malicious leak of private information, manipulation of board members, and actions contrary to company values. His resignation is required immediately. All benefits are forfeit. Gavin's face drained white. His mouth opened, closed. Nothing came out. Second, Mr. Thomas Hale is reinstated as executive chair. Scattered applause rippled through the crowd. Tom's shoulders sagged with relief. Furthermore, Mrs. Eunice Park will serve as lead director, providing oversight and ensuring accountability. Eunice nodded, her steel-gray hair catching the light. Third, and most importantly, Margaret paused, looking directly at Ray. The Second Chances Charter is hereby adopted as permanent company policy. This includes all provisions for veteran hiring, caregiver support, prisoner re-entry programs, and ethical vendor requirements. The lobby erupted. People hugged, cried, cheered. Margaret raised her hand for quiet. Finally, the board unanimously offers Mr. Raymond Brooks the position of Chief Steward of Culture. This role includes full executive authority, dedicated staff, and budget to implement and maintain our new values framework. Every eye turned to Ray. He stood frozen, Ruby tugging at his sleeve. Slowly he made his way forward through the parting crowd. His work boots echoed on the marble he'd polished 1,000 times. "Ma'am," Ray said when he reached the microphone, "I appreciate the offer. I really do. But I don't need a title. I'm just Ray." Tom stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. "It's not about a title. It's about showing the world what leadership looks like." Ray looked at the faces around him, Marta nodding encouragement, the security guard who'd testified, the Marine, the cafeteria worker, all of them waiting, hoping. Ruby pulled at his uniform. "Say yes, Daddy." Ray's voice came out rough. "If it helps folks, then yes, I accept." The cheer that went up could have lifted the roof. Ruby jumped into his arms. People rushed forward, shaking his hand, patting his back, some just touching his sleeve like he might transfer some grace. Through the celebration, Ray noticed movement. Gavin was leaving, walking toward the exit with his banker's box of belongings. No one spoke to him. No one met his eyes. Then Gavin stopped, turned back. Their eyes met across the lobby. For a moment, Ray saw the fear beneath the pride. The small, scared man who'd built walls of cruelty to hide his own wounds. Ray handed Ruby to Marta, walked across the lobby. "Gavin." The man flinched. "I'm sorry it ended this way." Gavin's mouth twisted. "Don't patronize me." "I'm not." Ray's voice stayed gentle. "Everybody deserves a second chance. Even you." Something flickered in Gavin's eyes. Confusion. Maybe pain. "When you're ready," Ray continued. "When you want to try again, call me. The door's not closed." Gavin stared at him for a long moment. Then, without a word, he turned and walked out into the rain. Behind Ray, the chanting had started. "Second chances! Second chances!" Tom appeared beside him. "You offered him grace. After everything. That's what second chances mean. For everybody. Think he'll take it?" Ray watched Gavin's figure disappear into the gray morning. "Maybe not today, maybe not this year, but seeds take time to grow." Ruby ran up, wrapping her arms around Ray's legs. "Daddy, you're the boss now." "No, baby." Ray lifted her up. "I'm the same man I was yesterday, just with more folks to care for. Mr. Brooks." Eunice approached, her lined face soft with something like pride. "Your first meeting is tomorrow. Budget reviews, policy implementation. Staff assignments." Ray nodded. Then he looked at his watch. "Right now, though, the third-floor bathroom needs restocking. The supply closet's running low on paper towels. Tom laughed. Ray, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Ray set Ruby down gently. A leader serves. That doesn't change with a title. He walked to his supply closet, pulled out his cart. The crowd watched, confused, as their new chief steward of culture loaded paper towels and cleaning supplies. What are you doing? Marta asked. Ray smiled. Same thing I've always done, taking care of people. Only difference is now you can see it. He pushed his cart toward the elevator. One by one, employees began to follow. The security guard grabbed a mop. Marta picked up window cleaner. Even Tom rolled up his sleeves. Within minutes, executives and janitors worked side by side, cleaning their building together. From outside, reporters pressed against the glass, cameras rolling. The image would make headlines by noon. A company cleaning house, literally and figuratively, led by a janitor with a mop in one hand and hope in the other. The chant continued, growing stronger. Second chances, second chances. And somewhere in the rain, Gavin Rusk sat in his car, Ray's words echoing in his head, a tiny crack forming in the walls he'd built so carefully around his heart. The morning after felt different. Ray arrived at Whitestone at his usual time, 5:30 a.m., but nothing else was usual. The security guard stood straighter, saluted. The night shift cleaning crew gathered around him in the lobby, questions tumbling out. Is it true about the budget? Will we get the caregiver leave? My son, he's got a record, but he's trying to change. Ray held up his hands, one thing at a time. Let me get my bearings first. But they kept looking at him with those eyes full of hope. The weight of it pressed on his chest. His new office, Tom had insisted, sat on the third floor. Not the executive level. Ray had been firm about that. Just a simple room with a window overlooking the employee parking lot. He'd brought his mop bucket, parked it in the corner. A reminder. The desk held stacks of proposals, budget sheets, personnel files. Ray stared at them, feeling like he was drowning in paper. A knock. Marta entered with coffee and a gentle smile. Overwhelming? I don't know how to read half of this. That's why you'll have help. She set down the coffee. Tom's assigned me to work with you, if you'll have me. Marta, Ray rubbed his face. Yesterday I was mopping floors. Yesterday you were already leading. We just made it official. She opened the first folder. The Veterans Employment Initiative, 20 positions, fully funded. You just need to approve the framework. Ray read slowly, finger following each line. These weren't just numbers. They were second chances. Hope for people like him who'd served, struggled, survived. Where do I sign? By noon, word had spread. The chief steward's door stayed open. A stream of employees found reasons to walk by, peek in, some brave enough to enter. Mr. Brooks, my daughter has special needs. The new caregiver policy. Ray? Sir, just Ray. Ray, I wanted to apologize for how I treated you before, walking past like you weren't there. Each conversation added weight. Ray felt the responsibility settling on his shoulders like stones. Tom found him at lunch, eating a sandwich at his old spot in the maintenance room. Hiding? Thinking. Ray took a bite. You sure about this? I've never been more sure of anything. Tom sat on a paint can. You know what the stock did this morning? Down, up, 3%. Biggest jump in a year. Ray stopped chewing. Why? Because hope sells. Because people want to believe companies can have souls. Because a janitor who offers grace to the man who tried to destroy him is a story that changes everything. I just did what seemed right. That's exactly why it works. After lunch, Ray walked the floors. Not with his mop this time, but still serving. Stopping at desks, listening. In accounting he found a woman crying quietly. What's wrong? She startled. Oh, Mr. Brooks, Ray. Talk to me. It's nothing. Just my mother. Alzheimer's. The new caregiver leave would help, but I don't want to seem like I'm taking advantage. You're not taking advantage of anything. You're taking care of family. That's what this is for. He pulled out a sticky note, wrote, "Family first, always, the work will wait." Stuck it to her monitor. She smiled through tears. The famous sticky notes. Not famous, just reminders that we're human. The afternoon brought the first real test. A manager from sales cornered him in the hallway. "This is ridiculous. Giving contracts to ethical vendors? Do you know how much that'll cost? Do you know how much it costs when we don't?" That's not an answer, Ray thought of Ruby, of the world she'd inherit. Every dollar we spend says who we are. I'd rather pay more and sleep better. The board won't. The board already approved it. The manager stormed off. Ray's hands shook slightly. Confrontation had never been his strength. Eunice appeared, having witnessed the exchange. "Well done." "Didn't feel well done." "Leadership rarely does." She adjusted her glasses. "There'll be more pushback." "People who like the old ways, I know. But for every one of them, there's 10 who've been waiting for this change." She patted his arm. "Trust your instincts, Ray. They've guided you this far." The day wore on, meeting after meeting, decision after decision. By evening, Ray's head throbbed. He found himself in the lobby, staring at the spot where yesterday hundreds had stood witness. Ruby bounced through the doors, Pastor Leon behind her. "Daddy, I drew you at work." She held up a picture. Stick figure Ray with a mop in one hand, a heart in the other. "That's perfect. Baby. Pastor Leon says you're doing God's work." Ray looked at his mentor. "I'm just trying not to mess up." "Same thing," Leon said. "The holy shows up in the trying." As they walked to the parking lot, Ray noticed something. A sticky note on his truck windshield. Not his handwriting. "Thank you for seeing us." No signature. But through the office windows, Ray saw faces watching. The security guard, the accountant, Marta, all the people who'd been invisible until someone decided they weren't. Ruby climbed into the truck. "Daddy, are you happy?" Ray considered. The weight hadn't left. If anything, it had grown heavier. But underneath was something else. Purpose, maybe. Or just the simple joy of being useful in a bigger way. "Yeah, baby, I think I am." As they drove home, the setting sun painted Whitestone's glass towers gold. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, more resistance, more weight. But tonight, Ray Brooks' janitor, father, chief steward of culture, would tuck his daughter into bed, say his prayers, and rest knowing that sometimes the floor that needs cleaning most is the one where decisions get made, and sometimes the one holding the mop is exactly who should be making them. The sun hung generous over Riverside Park, painting everything gold. Whitestone's annual picnic sprawled across the green tablecloths, fluttering, smoke rising from grills, the crack of a baseball bat mixing with children's squeals. Ray stood at the edge of it all, leaning on his mop handle like an old walking stick. Not because he needed to clean anything, just habit, comfort in familiar things. "Never thought I'd see this," Marta said, approaching with 2 lemonades. "6 weeks ago, we were all fired." Ray accepted the drink. "Feels like a year. Feels like a different lifetime." Across the field, Ruby rounded second base, pigtails flying. Other kids cheered her on, the CEO's grandson, the accountant's twins, the security guard's boy. No divisions, just children being children. "Your daughter's fast," Marta observed. "Gets it from her mother." They watched in comfortable silence. The Shiloh Baptist Choir began "Wade in the Water," their voices carrying across the park. Some employees swayed, others hummed along. A few months ago, mixing church music with a company event would have caused HR panic. Now, it felt right. Tom approached the small stage they'd set up near the playground. The crowd quieted gradually, paper plates balanced in hands. "I'll keep this short," he began. "You came for potato salad, not speeches." Laughter rippled through the gathering. 6 weeks ago, I made a decision that shocked everyone, including myself, if I'm honest. But it wasn't really my decision. It was Ray Brooks who showed us the way, who reminded us that a company is just people taking care of people. Ray shifted uncomfortably. Tom caught his eye, smiled. But here's what I've learned. It wasn't about one man. It was about mercy becoming policy, about choosing light over fear, about remembering that every person here, he gestured across the crowd, has a story that matters. The accountant who'd cried in her office nodded, dabbing her eyes. The Marine veteran Ray had talked down from the edge, raised his beer in salute. Noah Hale, standing with a group of young programmers, watched his father with pride. The Second Chances Charter isn't just words on paper, Tom continued. It's Marcy taking afternoons to care for her mother. It's James hiring men getting out of prison, giving them dignity with a paycheck. It's all of us remembering that profit without purpose is just greed with a spreadsheet. More applause, someone shouted. Amen. So thank you, all of you, for believing we could be better, for proving that we could. Tom raised his cup. To second chances, to mercy, to the light that shines when we polish each other up. The crowd erupted. Ray tried to slip away, but Tom caught his arm. Where you going? Ruby's at bat. She can wait a minute. Tom steered him toward the bulletin board Marta had set up. Already, it was covered in sticky notes. Some Ray recognized as his own, yellowed with age. Others were fresh, different handwriting. You are stronger than yesterday. Grace multiplies when shared. Every clean floor reflects heaven. But in the center, laminated to last, was the one Marta had just posted. Mercy is the mop that makes the world new. People stopped as they passed, touching it like a talisman. An older woman Ray didn't recognize pressed her fingers to it, then to her heart. Who's that? Ray asked. Gavin's former secretary, Tom said quietly. He fired her for taking time when her husband had cancer. We brought her back last week. Ray watched her walk away, shoulders straighter than when she'd approached. You did that, Tom said. We did that. No. You showed us how. I just got out of the way. Ruby's voice carried across the field. Daddy, I hit a triple. Ray waved, pride swelling. She jumped up and down on third base, the other kids cheering. Even the teenager manning the pitcher's mound grinned. Pastor Leon appeared with a plate piled high with ribs. That child's gonna play college ball. She's 8, Pastor. I'm speaking it into existence. He handed Ray the plate. Eat. You're too skinny for all this responsibility. The afternoon mellowed into evening. Families spread on blankets. Someone produced a guitar. Kids caught fireflies in mason jars, their laughter punctuating the cooling air. Ray found himself back at his favorite spot, the edge where he could see everything. His mop handle, which Ruby had decorated with ribbons for the picnic, stood beside him like a flag. Tom joined him, both men quiet as they surveyed the scene. The field that 6 weeks ago might have hosted a tense corporate retreat now held something entirely different. Community, family, hope made visible. My son's staying sober, Tom said suddenly. 90 days yesterday. That's good. He says it's because he finally has something to stay sober for, a company that sees him as more than his mistakes. Ray nodded. Understood. You saved him, you know. Not just that night in the bathroom, but every day since, by showing all of us what grace looks like with its sleeves rolled up. Ray's throat tightened. Tom, you saved my soul too. I was becoming someone I didn't recognize, someone my wife wouldn't have recognized. Tom's voice caught. You brought me back. We saved each other, Ray said simply. That's what people do. They stood together as the sun touched the horizon, spilling copper light across the field. Ruby ran toward them, grass-stained and glowing, carrying her baseball glove like a trophy. Daddy, Mr. Tom, did you see? I almost hit a home run. Almost counts, Ray said, lifting her up. Next time, she declared with absolute certainty, next time I'll hit it over the fence. Looking at her face, at Tom's tired but peaceful expression, at the field full of people who'd found their way through darkness together, Ray believed her. The future stretched ahead, bright as the polished floors he'd spent decades perfecting. There would be challenges, setbacks, days when the old ways whispered louder than the new, but tonight, with Mercy pinned to a board and children racing bases and the choir humming Amazing Grace as the stars emerged, Ray Brooks knew they'd already won the only victory that mattered. They'd learned to see each other, and in that seeing, everything shone. If you enjoyed the story, I handpicked this next story that you will enjoy. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.